My name is Alayna. I'm 22 and I have done 2 productions so far with Blue Springs. I'm really just someone who's always loved theater, loved just music and performing and interacting with people who have the same interests. It's really one of the biggest outlets that I have. Like, one of the things that I always looked forward to whenever I was out of high school was coming to rehearsal to forget about everything going on for a few hours, interact with the cast, practice in the car, just even in general, if I'm not in a show, singing in the car to just forget for a few hours. And it gives me a chance to be someone other than myself while also entertaining other people. And one of the things that I've always said is, for me personally, while performing, one of the most rewarding things is hearing the audience laugh. Believe it or not, I'm actually a pretty introverted person outside of theater. I have my small group of friends that I hang out with occasionally, but a lot of the time I just keep to myself. I just stick to a routine and do it. A lot of people will see me at first and then I'll be like, oh yeah, I do theater. And they're like, really? How? It was probably about 12-ish, 13, that time period. Because I had broken my arm. And then whenever I was getting x-rays done, I had gone to a follow-up appointment and found out that my bone age was actually 2 years older than what I actually was. So that was the first hint that there was something else going on. But that was really the time that, I started putting on a lot of extra weight, and I started noticing that I was growing extra hair on my face and everything. And I was later diagnosed with PCOS, or polycystic ovarian syndrome. And it caused a lot of confusion in my life. I obviously didn't look like everyone else. And it really affected a lot once other people started to point notice to it, which really started around middle school. And that was kind of the start of a lot of, I guess, struggle. Whenever I was around the people who knew me for me and my family and everything, they really didn't care. But it was when I was at school, people would make comments on it and make fun of me for it. And that really caused a lot of insecurity and a lot of just, I guess, self-hatred, because I would do everything that I could to get rid of it and take care of it, but nothing worked. And it was also just about that time where, just in general, my mental health basically tanked because of everything going on, of me hating my own appearance and then other people hating on me for it. And it just really destroyed my confidence in who I was. In middle school, high school-ish, because that's usually about the time where, I guess, to put it in the best terms possible, changes happen. So the guys and the boys would start growing out their facial hair and stuff, and then the women wouldn't. And so I was caught in the middle of not knowing where I fit in. A lot of people just assumed that I was lazy and didn't take care of myself, and that I didn't try. And that was just not the case. I really did try. I was taking medications for it. None of it worked. And a lot of it either didn't work or made me feel worse. So a lot of people just wouldn't want to deal with it or deal with me because they didn't want to be assumed the same way. it wasn't something that I could help. And that if people would just take a second to get to know who I was rather than just judging me based on a 3-second glance, that you might realize that a lot of stuff is not what it looks like, and that I don't just not care. If you could hear the explanations, maybe they could understand a bit more and then get a little extra grace. After I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis back in 2024, I struggled a lot because whenever I got my diagnosis, what spurred that knowledge that I had something wrong with me was that I had lost my ability to walk. I couldn't see because I had optic neuritis. My coordination was off. My balance was non-existent. And I was so scared and terrified that I wouldn't be able to get any of that back. As time has gone on and I've learned more and I've been on my treatments longer, I really just started to calm down. And it's just the going day to day and realizing I'm not going to die tomorrow. And I'm not, I guess the best way that I could put it is not as disabled as I could be, which is a big blessing for me. I had been into theater and loved theater for years since I was tiny. So the moment that I found out, like in middle school, that they do a musical every year was phenomenal for me. Because at that time, like, I didn't know of any of the community theaters in my area that I could work with. I had done a couple things beforehand. Like, I had done this acting class and I believe it was actually with Independent City Theater, but I didn't know that at the time. And then I had done, I guess it actually happened later, but like I had done Starlight Stars for a summer, which was a fun opportunity too. So the moment that I got the chance to in middle school, I grabbed that chance and I took it. My my first audition was in 7th grade for a musical called Murder at Crooked House, and I don't even remember how it went, but I just remember going in with no confidence because it was like, I probably won't get anything because, seniority, the 8th graders will get everything. But then I ended up finding out later that I had gotten like one of the bigger female roles in that show as Rebecca Fitzwilliam, which was the old lady who owned the Crooked House thing. And it was such a fun show to have as my first show. The school that I went to, the choir teacher at the time, I won't necessarily name names, but she was very cliquey. And when I was in middle school, my physical stuff wasn't showing as much. So it wasn't as bad. It really started getting like bad in high school, I guess. So when I was in middle school, she loved me. I was great. She can't wait to cast me when I get to high school, working with me, treating me like I'm the best person ever. And then the physical changes happened whenever I got to high school. And then I get to high school and I basically am treated like I don't exist. And whenever I would go to audition and she would be there and I'd have to do it in front of her, you could tell she had the facial expression of, okay, yep, I'm just sitting here because I already know what I'm going to do because, of course, the same people got the same roles all the time and they were always her favorites. And the theater teacher, she basically fully admitted that because of how this particular choir teacher was, she had no say, and it was actually the choir teacher making all the decisions because of how she was. So not even the theater teacher tried to fight with her because she knew she would never win against that. And you could tell by looking at her favorites what her expectations were when it came to physicality. And I was very much the opposite of that. I don't know if it necessarily like was intentional, but like whenever I was in high school, I was always promised the seniors get the bigger parts. So, freshman year, sophomore year, I gave it some grace. But when I really got to junior and senior year and was still getting like 2-line parts, and when I got to my senior year and got passed up by underclassmen and freshmen that were obviously her favorites because her favorites were always a part of the main choir at the school. You could definitely tell because I was also usually one of the only people in my class that didn't get a big part and just got that tiny sprinkle type part. But I always, kept in mind what my mom always said is there's no such thing as a small part and to do the most with it what you can. I was doing my senior show. We were doing Freaky Friday and I got the Spanish teacher and multiple people that like came to me and told me that, it's my senior show and I deserved better than that for it being my senior show, which there's nothing wrong with like the part, obviously. But like whenever there were roles like the Friends that were being done and they're being given to freshmen, sophomores, when a senior is right there and this is the last opportunity they get, it really, a lot of people noticed too that I wasn't getting the same opportunities as everyone else in my class. That really stuck with me and to this day still sticks with me. I had basically given up on doing theater and performing outside of my church and things like that. And I really had this like I can't remember what it's actually called because I'm pretty sure there's a name for it. But I was in an internal battle with myself constantly of am I really just full of myself? Am I really just saying I'm better than I actually am? Because I would do all of these things outside of high school and perform out at Starlight Theater, and I get in the top all district choir and get opportunities to audition for state, but I couldn't get anything in my own school, really caused a lot of internal conflict of, am I really as good as people say I am? Or am I just full of myself? And that caused a lot of issues and pain for myself just with that alone, not counting everything else. And that's not something I've really ever said to anyone either. Really, the confidence with my performing skyrocketed once I got out of school and was doing things that weren't affiliated with my school. When I was actually getting the opportunities to, be a lead role in a play or, play the MC, those moments really helped me realize that other people don't care outside of the judgmental high school space. Yeah, you have a group of favorites, but reach out beyond that. That person could be just as good as one of your favorites, but you'll never know because you don't even give them the shot to try. Because you make an assumption based on either how they look or based on what they've done. And it's obvious, and it's always been a thing, that theater and fine arts, for the most part, is a very non-inclusive space. I mean, just look at Hollywood. You can tell that theater is one of those things that isn't inclusive because you can literally get denied parts because you don't look the way the director wants you to look. And if you get rid of that, a lot more doors would open for a lot more people. I was at home and I was taking a bath. And while I was in the bath, I was just scrolling through Facebook, and the ad for Marion, the true story of Robin Hood, popped up on my feed. And I don't know what it was and why I was so like, let's do it. But like, I was just like, you know what? Let's do it. And so I put in for an audition, saw it, and I was like, because I was so used to theater being so cliquey and never done community theater before, I was like, it's my first audition, probably not gonna get anything. Not gonna happen. No way. And so I showed up, I did the audition for Andrew, and then I got called back. I went and did the callback, and then I found out that I got Alayna Dale while I was sitting in the middle of 54th Street with my friends and had to stop myself from screaming in the middle of the crowded restaurant because I was so excited. But it had been a couple years since I had performed, because like I had been doing like the worship team at my church and stuff, but like that is performing in front of basically the same group of people every week, and even then it's not performing, it's leading. And doing a play like that I hadn't done in so long, and it was the biggest part that I had since Rebecca Fitzwilliam in middle school. So I was like, ooh, am I really going to be able to do this? And I did. But one thing that made me feel welcome was actually getting the part that I did, believe it or not, because it means that someone saw me for me and saw me for my ability rather than what I looked like. And that on its own changed my perception entirely about doing community theater with Blue Springs. Just the people that you meet, the memories you make, the connections. No one really is negative ever. And I know I've only done 2 shows, but like nobody, at least in the 2 shows that I've done, even when one of the shows was heavy on the topic matter, was ever like negative, which helped a lot too. I didn't have to worry about, being judged for what I looked like. Going into these shows, everyone was meeting me for the first time. So, yeah, I would talk here and there with people while sitting and waiting for an audition, but like actually meeting them properly once getting cast in the show, they met me for me, and they didn't judge me based on what I looked like, or at least I hope they didn't. And if they did, they're good actors because they didn't act like they did. So it really helped a lot too. Theater is something that can change someone's life, because I know that because it changed mine. Some of my favorite memories are in rehearsals and performing and getting recognized for more than just singing in the car or in the bedroom or in the shower. It can take, and I've seen it too with other people, where I've seen this shy, closed in individual that has this talent, and they take that step in auditioning for that community show and then get a halfway decent part for their first try, and then you just see them blossom into something that you've never expected to come from that person because someone took the chance on them and someone gave them that chance. Whenever I went for my audition for Cabaret, I literally went and I was like, okay, I want the role of the MC. It's been my dream role for years, but I know that there is probably a chance that I won't get it, considering the MC is a thin male role. Not usually. And I am very much not either of those things. But I was like, you know what? I got the range, let's give it a shot and maybe it'll work. And it was also my first show since being diagnosed. And so it was a lot of fear going in. But going in and auditioning for this part and getting this part in such an important show, it revived everything in myself that I had lost because of a particular woman at a particular high school. It brought back my love for theater. It never went away, but it had fizzled out because of people and me letting people dictate what I felt about myself and my own ability. It brought back my confidence in myself because I was so scared that I wouldn't be able to do the show because of the physical limitations I now have because of my disability and my chronic illness. Because just getting too hot can basically cause my body to shut down. And it brought back just my confidence in myself of I just did the one thing that I thought was impossible for me to do. Whenever we took those first bows for cabaret, like we walked off and I just started bawling because I did that. I did the one thing that I never thought that I would be able to do again. And I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. Opening night of cabaret will be probably one of the core memories that I carry with me for the rest of my life. That I defied the odds. I did it. And I'm not going to let anything stop me now. Don't give up. Don't give up. Go to the community theater audition. Go in and sing your heart out and try your best, because you could go in thinking there's no chance I'm going to get this role that I want to get. And then you get that email and then your entire life changes because you get to play the part that you've always wanted to play. Because you took the step to go outside of the judgmental space. You took the step to make the effort of reaching out and honing your craft somewhere else where it can actually be appreciated for what it is. It's helped like I said, my confidence, which has made a lot of my just daily life easier and mental health easier. Because now when I'm singing in the car, I don't sit and think to myself, oh, I wish I could do this, but I'll never get the chance. It turned into, I'm singing in the car. Ooh, I can use this at one of my auditions. And I can plan out now. I'm planning, books of songs of, oh, you need a funny musical theater song? Pick, and it's easy. Because I'm actually taking the time to think about it now. Taking the time to think, okay, what could I use if they ask for this? What can I use if they ask for this? Instead of, I'm just singing this because it's fun. And you'll never get the opportunity to ever do this, though. You'll never get the opportunity to perform it. And it really changed my perspective on just a lot of things in my life. Just having that space and then, having the community aspect and developing new friendships and new, love. And, there'll be people that'll, even find their love for theater by doing a community show. They'll have no interest in theater. And then, a friend says, hey, audition for this show. Peer pressure. And then they do it. And then they get in the show and do the show. And then a new love for theater is formed. Community theater in itself just is such a big impact on so many areas of creativity that it shouldn't go anywhere ever. Sure, there are community choirs and things like that, but there's not a lot of community spaces really for performing like that, for actors outside of community theater. And the spaces that do exist are like, you gotta have agents, you gotta look the right place, you gotta look the part, you gotta, you know, have agents spend $200 to become equity and union, which I think is absolutely insane. So having that free community-based space is huge for a lot of people. It gives me my outlet to be able to sing and dance and wear silly costumes and make people laugh. it it gives me a chance to make new connections and new friends and see people that end up meaning a lot to me whether they realize it or not. It gives, sometimes it gives people opportunities to leave the house because they don't leave the house for one reason or another, but then they find out their loved one is in a show and they want to go support their loved one. So it gives the people who usually don't leave or can't leave because they either feel like they have nothing to do or they're too sick or something, to give them the motivation to actually get up and leave, which is a lot for those types of people too. It's something that helps audiences. It's something that helps performers. It's something that helps artists, people who like to do technology, people who like to play music. I get to do something meaningful that doesn't only impact me, it impacts and reaches other people. It's like you have shows like Cabaret that touch on heavy topics and has their lighthearted moments, but also has their serious moments where they address things like politics and identity and things like that. So not only does it tell stories and have the impact on everyone who's a part of it and the people who come to see it, it has an impact by giving a creative space to talk about important historical topics and gives a space for those things to be addressed too. Because it shows that not everything appears to be the way it looks from a first glance. That someone else who has PCOS or MS or some other issue can look at, for example, what I've done and can say, oh, she did it. Why can't I? If she can go and perform and do these shows, why can't I do it? What's stopping me from doing it? And sometimes the smallest things, like seeing something like that, can change an entire person's perspective. And it's kind of just one of those living, I don't want to say living testimonies, but that's the best that I can give of like, I beat the odds and never thought that I'd perform again because I got sick. And then I performed as, one of the quote unquote lead roles in a show. And I did that while sick. So don't stop just because you think you can't. And unfortunately, there are people out there that can't, even if they really, really want to. And I even hate thinking about that because these people want to, but will a lot of the time never get the opportunity, which is even more of a reason why they need to be given that opportunity and why spaces need to change to fit those opportunities. And one of the best examples that I actually can give is the Penguin Project that Blue Springs does. I had never even thought of that before being a thing that, people could do. So that on its own is impactful because you have these kids and these people that get to perform with the help of Blue Springs Community Theater. Well, a lot of the building blocks of someone who gets into the arts and gets into performance starts in school by doing choir, doing band, doing theater, doing forensics, even. But schools cut funding for their performing arts and give it to their football teams and their basketball teams and allocate it to other stuff. And so the arts slowly dies because these schools can't afford to do the arts and can't afford to do these things, so they end up having to cut them, which then takes so many opportunities away from a ton of people, a ton of kids, where that's their formative years, really, where they discover if that's what they love or not. So having theater programs that have classes that teach them theater and acting that then go into like a choir kid who goes into choir and they start a freshman year and they're like, oh, choir will be just a easy fine arts credit. And then end up falling in love with doing choir. Same with theater. They go in, oh, acting one's just going to be an easy fine arts credit. Oh, this is actually something I really like doing. I want to keep doing it. Band is just a whole other thing. If you're band, you got to choose to be in band, and usually once you do band 1 year, you don't usually quit. That's just its own thing. But specifically with theater and choir, those things are where a lot you have that bait in the water with choir and theater, because you have to have a fine arts credit to graduate, and usually theater and choir are the easy ones to do. And acting one class can turn a basketball player into a theater kid. I just referenced High School Musical completely unintentionally. Get out and do it if you want to do it. Volunteer and donate your time if you have it. Don't pull fine arts from schools. If you're a director thinking about doing a show, give the chance to someone whose resume isn't, this thick. And even if you doubt yourself, and even if you think, I'm not talented enough, and if you think I can't do it because of my physical issues or mental issues or anything like that, do it anyway. You might just surprise yourself. I know I did.